Love it.
Nobody tinkles the keys better than Phil.
That's right.
I do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I do it.
Yeah.
How's everybody today?
I can't speak for everybody, but I am great. How are you?
I am awesome. It's a Friday, and as much as today's chilling topic is,
Yes.
it's not that cold here in Michigan. It's 60 degrees in February. So,
Excuse me?
yeah.
Oh, that's warmer than it is here, Phil.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm at 41 degrees right now.
I'm at 49.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also 3 hours earlier.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
still morning for
maybe
me.
I'll move to Michigan.
Yeah, you're still in the morning.
Yeah. So we are talking real world cold weather experience
Yes.
with a brand new EV driver we have as our guest who bought their EV this last summer and is dealing with the cold.
Yes.
So I would like to bring them on now.
Please.
Some of the audience may remember her. You two have not met her. This is my sister, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Who, since we last spoke, did go out and buy an EV since the last time.
Yeah,
she
you
was
got
on
the Mustang, the Mach-E, right?
Okay, I can't hear you. Can you speak again, Wendy? Yep, no volume.
Got me?
Yep, there you are.
Okay. Sorry. Yes. Hi, guys.
Can I ask Wendy a question?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with an EV. So,
okay.
So exactly what was Justice like as a brother, as a sibling, as a...
Oh, boy.
He was the best.
Good answer.
He's
Yeah.
a wonderful,
That is a great answer.
He's a wonderful brother.
Yeah. I am one of her top 4 favorite siblings. I can tell you that.
You're in there somewhere.
Yeah.
My favorite brother, that's for sure.
Is he your only brother?
No, I have one other brother.
Okay, well, I was just checking,
But he's not on here, so we're good. We're set.
Yeah.
Right now, Justice is my favorite brother.
Very good. I like that. What's your favorite thing about your Mustang?
Oh, it feels like I'm driving on a cloud.
Okay.
Like when you go down the street, it is the smoothest. It literally feels like you're floating.
Wow. Are you sure?
Now, I'd like to ask Wendy, what car did you have before the Mach-E?
So I had a Honda CRV.
Okay.
And so when I came out last year to see Justice, we decided to do some test driving on some different EVs for a potential when I might need a new car. And, we laughed about it and thought like this was a few years down the road because my car was fairly new. It was like a 21, I think. And then I came home and a few months later, my son was in a car accident. My car got totaled. Thank goodness it was fine, but my car got totaled and I was in a situation where I never thought I'd be in. And it was like, should I pull the trigger now and do what I've been thinking? And so I started test driving some up here as well to try to decide which one was the best option for me.
Now, when you say up here, can you share with us where up here is?
Oh, sorry about that. Up here in Massachusetts.
It gets cold there?
A little bit chilly.
Okay.
A little bit chilly. Even though I have to say it's been a little bit of a mild winter for us. We haven't got killed with a lot of snow this year. But yeah, we're now in the cold season.
Has that impacted your range on your Mach-E?
Yes. So fully charged when the weather's a little warmer, I'd say I'm about 220 miles fully charged. Some mornings when I fully charge it, I can go out and I could be at 180.
Wow.
So I do lose about 30 miles, give or take, depending on how cold it is. And I just realized this probably over the last month because it's starting to really get cold. So yeah, I definitely seen a little drop in the mileage.
That seems like a significant drop in the mileage.
It is.
And it is a real thing. It's something that we talk about, all the time. Like despite some people putting me as a Tesla fanboy. First off,
You are.
did I ever push you to get a Tesla?
Never.
Never did. I didn't even mention it. Right? We just rode in mine, and that was it. But
Yeah.
but there are some real world issues with EVs that we talk about, and this is definitely one of them. And I was curious, since you bought right in the was it the fall or is it the summer you bought?
I bought it in like October.
Okay, so in the fall.
Decent weather here, be like in the 60s, 70s. Now we're like in the the 20s, so it's very different.
Yeah. So I was curious how the winter was going to treat you. Are you able to charge at your apartment?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky where I live. I actually have free chargers, which was one of the selling points for me. So I wouldn't have to drive around looking for a charger. I could just charge my car, and I don't normally drive a lot, just to work and home. So I'm a very local driver. So that 220 or 160 or wherever I end up landing could last me days, because I don't drive very far, but I do have my own charger at where I live, which is a plus.
That's great.
So if I hear you correctly, because you don't do a tremendous amount of driving, even with a loss of range, you don't really suffer any range anxiety.
No, but I would love to share a little story with you, and I think you guys will think this is quite funny.
We like funny. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I tend to just drive very local. My job's probably about 6 miles away, so 12 miles a day, give or take. And so I decided I was going to take my first kind of longer trip, like 300-mile trip, on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day.
Wow.
I was going to stay up in New Hampshire with my family. So we drove there, and it was about 2.5 miles away. I couldn't tell you 2.5 hours away. I couldn't tell you the exact miles. So I pre-planned it going up, made sure I stopped, I filled up and got to our hotel and said, oh, we'll just charge in the morning on our way home. We're going to be fine on Christmas morning. Needless to say, I probably had about 45 miles on my car when it was time to go home. And because I didn't plan ahead and really look, and this was my first trip, every charger I went to was one of those long charges that would take 10 hours or something like
level
that.
2.
Which nothing was open, so it's not like we could have put it there and go eat and walk around somewhere on Christmas Day. So here we are, stuck in a state, couldn't find a quick charge, panicking how we were ever going to get home. So this was my first big one. And then I decided to do this on Christmas Day. Funniest part of the whole story. And then luckily, with a lot of searching, I found a quick charge, and when I got there, I had 4 miles to spare.
Oh my goodness!
So yeah, I cut close, but I was able to charge myself and get home, and it was a funny story. And I said, "Well, I've learned the hard way that next time, be way more prepared than I was." On my mind, I'm like, "There's chargers everywhere. So I'm going to be fine. This is not a big deal." And I learned the hard way that not all the quick chargers aren't as available and near you as you think, especially in New Hampshire, which is not necessarily a city like Boston, where I probably would have found one way easier. So I couldn't wait to share that story with you. I don't want to say if that was a woman thing or a new EV driver thing.
That's a new EV driver thing and a non-Tesla thing. I'm sure if you have the Tesla connector, there's a lot more chargers, but certainly something I know Igor has pointed out too is, that's a big thing for a lot of your first road trip in an EV is learning that. Because Wendy, you road tripped with me. We went all the way up to Reading and then to Santa Cruz and all that, and it was okay because we have that infrastructure. But I know one of the other things I think Brandon mentioned on the last show too was it's infrastructure. New Hampshire doesn't have
It's
what
true.
I mean. Boston, maybe you guys have some. I think Sacramento probably has twice that of all of Boston, just because that's what California has. And I know the further away you are from infrastructure, the more anxiety you're going to get, the more you're going to have to do those things. I know we had suggestion of a better route planner, which I use even in the Tesla sometimes. I'll use just to see, to double check my car and, its range, because Tesla doesn't allow you to say, I want to arrive with at least this much battery.
Right.
Tesla goes, okay, you're going to arrive with, 1%. I'm like, I don't play that game because I don't know what traffic is going to be like and stuff. Just like, in my ICE car, I didn't go down to the light came on E,
Right.
sitting around. Like I planned out better. That my Tesla, I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, a better route planner allows me to go, I don't want to arrive with less than 10%.
Right.
So if that means I have to stop another stop along the way, I'd rather do that. So that's where those kind of wraps. But I know first time EV owners, myself included, that first road trip, I pulled into my first Tesla station on my road trip with 0%.
Oh my.
And I'd gone like 2 miles with 0%. I was like, oh, and I was just like, it was all the anxiety I've ever had of just like, don't die. Because I know what happens to an EV. I mean, it wouldn't have completely died, but it's not good to have that die fully on you. Like if that 12 volt has also failed on you because it's drained out, then you got a brick. But yeah, I was able to get in there, and again, I was on 0% for a couple miles, and I was just, it was everything. And then never again.
Yeah.
I have never gone.
My lesson.
Yeah. I've never had less than 10% since then, ever. I'm like, nope, not gonna do that. And I see Phil's face, an ICE car enthusiast, going, I never want to deal with that.
Yeah.
But,
I don't.
But you
I
also
just don't.
you don't let your car go down to empty, right, Phil?
I mean, traditionally, no.
Yeah.
No.
So it's kind of the same thing. And I can't speak to your guys' area. I know where Ray is. We've looked up chargers in his area, and it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. I have more chargers within 1 mile of me than Ray has within 35 miles of him.
Yeah.
It's insane over there. So I get infrastructure is a big deal. Wendy, you're lucky to be able to charge at home too. Even
I keep,
which was one of my big selling points,
especially for free.
Well,
that's
it.
Fantastic.
The saving that I'm doing on gas is mind blowing. I can't imagine.
I was going to say I keep getting notices about the mini EV, and they have a special lease program, $279 a month, $30-some $100 down, whatever, but it's cheap. I think it's only got like, I don't know, an 80-mile range or something like that. And I think, that could be fun. And then I realize I have nowhere to charge the damn thing. And
yeah,
I don't want to be running around hoping that I make it to wherever I got to get to charge it. There's somebody that lives in my building that has a Mercedes EQS, I guess it is. He charges it at his friend's house. His friend is nice enough to let him, and his friend lives, a couple blocks away when he's here. But at our condo, there's no place to charge. There's no charging stations even relatively close to where it's just.
And you're in a cold, compared to me, you're in a cold environment. Like it's just, so, this is one thing that we talk about. I try to be realistic about EVs. I know there's mostly fake information about them out there, but some of the real ones are, you got to check infrastructure in your area. That, and you really have to check, because as we've discussed before, like most people who start riding around with me don't know that how many EV chargers are around us, because they're not like gas stations. They're not out on the corner.
Right.
They're hidden back behind places. I mean, Wendy, when we were road tripping, how many behind Walmarts and stations did we go to? Like a behind strip malls,
yeah.
like that you didn't know they were there unless you had to track them down. So, you got to figure that out. And then, yeah, if you're in the cold, if you're going to road trip, like I think, like you're saying, Wendy, in a daily situation, not really a big deal. But on a road trip situation, if you're in the cold, if you're losing, 40 miles of range on something that only gets, 220 in the first place,
right.
That's pretty significant on a road trip. So,
Oh yeah. And then if you have your heat on, the radio on, you think about, the heated seats and the this, that, and the other. I'm sure that's dwindling down the miles as well.
Yeah, as Phil has pointed out, the one thing with EVs is turning on the heater runs it down more than it does on an ICE vehicle who uses the engine heat to help with that.
So if I understand correctly, when you put on the heater, that draws off of the main battery pack, not the 12-volt battery?
Yeah, because it's not, the 12 volts not strong enough. So, and there's no
heating system in my condo. Yeah.
Yeah. But with no engine to help with the heat, you have to generate all of it. So that is one thing with EVs on the heater side of it. AC is about normal, the same between both, but heater does use more.
Wow.
And of course, like anything, your heated seats and steering wheel and all that, everything pulls power on all vehicles.
Right.
Man, the things I'm learning. I'm learning. I guess what I'm really learning is to ignore those ads for that Mini.
With your charging network, I would. Right.
Yeah.
Because I know all the apps to look at, and I looked at them all for your area. We did that last year at some point, and wow, that was surprising.
I keep thinking that there's got to be some chargers at the casino hotels in Atlantic City.
I was surprised at how few there were when I went to Reno. Because we went to Reno, I assumed every casino would have EV charger. Why wouldn't you? And that, they did, but there were like two. I'm like, two of the, non-fast chargers, and you'd want level 2, I would think, if you're a casino, so people could plug in and then go blow all their money in your casino.
Yes.
That's a thought process. But while we went to the Hard Rock Casino out here in Northern California the other day, and they had 4.
Wow.
I was like, that's not enough. When you figure people are at the casino for 3, 4, 5 hours, and they're not going to come out and unplug and move their car. So they're just throwing you money. So I was surprised at how little there were at casinos, that I really thought there'd be a lot more.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot more at rest stops. When you're on the highway, I'm starting to see definitely Tesla, obviously, but just more rows of chargers at rest stops along the way on the highway, which is slightly helpful.
Yeah, and don't forget, Wendy, Ford is now giving you a free Tesla adapter.
Yeah, that's supposed to be mailed to me when it's available, right?
Yeah. Yes, I believe so. Just make sure you get that, because obviously once you have access to that network, a lot of the charging woes sort of go away as well.
So let me ask you, Wendy, can I ask your brother a technical EV question?
Please.
Okay. So assuming that I drive about 3 miles a week. Because even when I was in Washington last weekend, I don't even drive to the train station. I take a Lyft. So because I don't want to drive to Washington, it's a pain in the ass. So assuming that I drive my 3, maybe 4 miles a week, how long? I mean, how often would I have to charge an EV?
So Mini doesn't have very much phantom, so I would stay away from like a Rivian, which
Yeah.
still has. They don't have the phantom drain that they used to, but they still do have phantom drain, as does the F-150 Lightning. Mini doesn't really have that, so like, right, I only charge once a week. You'd probably charge maybe once a month.
Wow. So maybe it really is doable.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to charge much because, as long as you're not, for my car, what would eat up more is when I'm not at home, I have Sentry mode on. So it's recording everything around the car at all times. So that drains battery more than, it just sitting there. So, but when I'm at home, I have that turned off. So it's not really much. Yeah, I would assume probably once a month because, like I said, I drive. I think I figured out I drive averaging 22 miles a day, and I charge once a week.
Okay.
And that's it. Like I go out on Sundays, charge up, I'm done. Cost me, $8, and I'm done for the week.
Interesting. Maybe it's something for me to consider. And then if I were to do it, do you think that everybody would stop saying I'm an EV hater?
No.
Or stop bashing me for every time I say something about an EV? Or do you think they'd still say, nah, Ray, you hate EVs. You just did it because it was a good deal.
Probably. Look, we've said this several times, and I say this on the Ray and Zach show in the comments a couple times, is so much of EV love or hate is more political opinion than it is fact. So those people who say that, Ray, are still going to say that just because it's their political opinion and not a fact about EVs or whether whether it's a good deal for you or not. It just is.
Yeah,
it's also unfortunate that our opinions of EVs are shaped by a political atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that is that's what's happening. That's what has been happening. And I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I think that's everything in society nowadays. I can't buy a pint of ice cream without thinking about the CEO's topic and opinion on this or that. I certainly can't buy a chicken sandwich. I know that. So like it gets crazy that we have everything's about political opinion. I know Wendy was not about political opinion. She barely has a political opinion. She's one of the smart ones who stays away. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I should give this more thought. And I mean, because legitimately, when I took my car in for service last May 20th, I took it in, it had 3,511 miles on it. Today, the car has 7,250 miles on it. And the really interesting part of that is my son, during the summer when he was kind enough to move to the Jersey Shore to spend the summer here with his girlfriend. Well, he put about, I don't know, I want to say 300 to 3,300 miles on my car. Which means I've only driven personally like 400 to 500 miles on myself in that car since May. Yeah. So I probably really could.
Just Ray, don't get one with the regen. Well, actually, no, they all have regen. Just get it where you can actually turn it off.
No, don't listen to that,
did
Ray.
Not like that.
It's just get used to it, Ray. It's much better.
Yeah, I remember I got used to it when we drove the one in Detroit, and I stopped like a mile and a half behind the traffic light. Yeah,
yes, you did. Yes,
you did. But I also remember you at that moment, or very close to that moment, yelling at the driver next to us about the frustrations of dealing with that.
Of whatever you do, never get an EV. Yes.
Yes.
Wendy, we do have a question for you here. How much have you saved on gas since you got your vehicle in October? Have you done the calculations?
Yeah, let me guesstimate.
Is it more than $12?
I would say probably about $2,000.
Wow.
I'd say about $2,000. Yeah. Yeah.
How could that be? You only drive a couple hundred miles a week.
Yeah, I just, gas is expensive up here in Massachusetts, and I'd probably fill it up twice a week, give or take.
Man.
Wow.
Remind me never to go back to Massachusetts. Yeah.
When I was considering buying this, I was worried about a lot of things. I was worried about, would my insurance go up? What would that look like compared to my Honda CRV? I was assuming, and it was just an assumption, that the EV would be a lot more expensive to insure. Come to find out, my insurance actually went down.
Wow.
As did mine.
Yep. So I actually saved money on insurance, saved money on gas. So it actually has been a very financial good decision for me. I did want to make a statement as far as people having an opinion. When I was, my car got totaled and I had to quickly decide, within like a week or two of like, what was I going to buy because I needed a car. Just about every single person I told when I had finally made the decision to buy EV thought I was crazy. I don't think one person supported the idea of it. I think it's still a very unknown.
I did. I supported
Absolutely. You did. You were very helpful and guided me in the right direction. But let's say everybody up here in Massachusetts, where maybe you wouldn't see, I see them. I think I see them now more because I have one. It's almost like when you get a car, all of a sudden you see them on the road all the time. So I'm starting to notice which ones are EVs and which ones aren't. But I was very surprised that more people were kind of like hesitant about the idea of buying one. But, I don't necessarily look for everybody's opinion. I make my own decision and I'm going to go with it myself and give it a good try. Obviously I had never even thought of buying an EV until I drove with Justice and he taught me a lot about it, forced me to drive his, get the feel of it, get the understanding. And then I became very excited about it. And I will say I'm very happy with the decision I made. I wouldn't want another car. I love my car. It's my baby right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know EV loyalship is the highest. It's, was a 97% of those who buy EVs buy them again. Now, we're still in the early adoption phase. So I think, so there is a skew to all of that. Because like it or not, we're still in the early adoption phase of EVs. And so you still see some skewed. But, like you said, Wendy, what I find is most people just don't even know much about them.
That's it.
But they'll have an opinion, but they won't know much at all about them. And then you get this. I think we had this in the chat on the last show was a lot of people, they don't even know what's true or not true when they're reading stories because they haven't experienced anything. So you hear things like, oh, you're going to have to replace your battery. It's going to cost $40,000 and they're acting like you're going to have to do that in 10 years. And it's like, no, the average EV battery lasts over 250,000 miles. Like you're just not going to have longer than most people keep a used vehicle even. So like you're just really not going to have to replace your battery. And battery prices have fallen 50% in the last 10 years and are still falling.
Right.
So, and the more those recycle and stuff, but it'll just get back to, that. But yeah, like David says, he'll never go back to ICE. I know he has an ID4 down there. For those of you who don't know David, you'll know him next Monday because we have an AutoInsiders show with him. Great guy down there in Florida.
Awesome.
He also says, his insurance went down as well on his 3 EVs. Like there's a lot of things, but you'll hear the opposite. Oh my, I've got to pay, 50% more for my insurance, and I got to do all this. I had people in the chat telling me all the maintenance I had to do on the vehicle. I'm like, no, literally none of that. literally don't have to do any of that. One guy said you have to oil the brakes. I don't use my brakes, so no.
Oil the brakes.
Oil the brakes. Yeah. I'm just like, no, that's not a thing. I have to
oil the brakes on a nice car.
Yeah.
What? I mean, what?
I have to rotate my tires, and I have to fill my windshield wiper fluid. That's the maintenance I have to do on my vehicle, period.
Yeah.
Every 5 years, I do go and I'll have to have Tesla actually check the battery, which right now is sitting at 97% health, which is fine for a 4-year-old car. Yeah. Right. And it hasn't changed. And that night,
and don't forget the blinker fluid too.
Yes, right? Yes, I'll get my blinker fluid.
That's funny.
What causes the battery to degrade over time?
Heat. It's heat, Ray. That's the number one killer. So that's why when we had that heat wave out in Phoenix and stuff, we started seeing those stories. Because to Wendy's point, the cold will diminish it, but that's a temporary diminishment.
Yes.
Right. Heating really hurts the battery. So this is why they tell you not to supercharge all the time on everything, that you should be level 2 charging, because supercharging adds a lot of heat to the battery. Now, I will say this, Recurrent has done, so everyone who doesn't know Recurrent, they connect to a lot of EVs and they do all, they gather all the information. My car has always been on Recurrent, is always connected. And they're finding that statistic of supercharging may not be very accurate, that they're not seeing any significant difference there. But certainly it's heat that makes it,
that
hurts it the most.
Me living in a colder climate half of the year would maybe then have my battery last a little bit longer?
I mean, then living, say, where your sister does, yes.
Correct. Okay.
Certainly, she lives in Tucson, right?
Yeah.
So that would be, I would say that would have the potential to harm the battery more. Now it depends. Does your car require special tires, Wendy?
No, not that I'm aware
I haven't
of.
heard that.
Not that.
But it may be true. I don't know either.
Yeah. I mean.
Mine doesn't.
Yeah.
I believe it requires rubber tires.
Oh, the rubber
that are round rubber tires. I believe they're special. That's special.
Those are the ones I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny, Ray. I swore I read somewhere something about the tires that they need to be a little bit more stiff because of the heavier weight, but I'm not so sure that that's necessarily true.
Stewart says they do make EV specific tires.
They do. And it's less about the weight and more about the torque on those. A lot of EV drivers like to launch their vehicles out of a stop sign. I know, Phil, you did in the short time you drove the Model Y. You like to launch it too, which is fine, but that's what's going to wear on the tires more than the weight is. It's going to be anytime you push it that hard. If you leave rubber on the road, you're going to degrade the tires.
But most EVs, or a lot of them are, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are all-wheel drive.
Many, but not all of them. I don't have an all-wheel drive because that wears on the tires more. All-wheel drive does, so I can rotate.
Okay, that makes sense because you're driving power to all four wheels.
Yeah,
that does make sense.
Can I ask us an early question, which are usually my best kind of questions?
Yeah.
So, if heat impacts the life of the battery, for the folks that live in the desert Southwest, and if that's the only place they ever have their car, their battery life shouldn't be or wouldn't be as long as someone who, like Wendy, lives in a cooler climate in the winter. with a slightly warmer climate in the summer?
Well, so it has to be really high temperatures.
Well, they specialize in really high temperatures
I know.
in the desert Southwest.
I did live with my sister in Tucson for a while.
Yeah.
I'm aware of,
so
of the heat out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, really, most of this is more theoretical than anything, right? It's kind of like the fire issue. So will the heat degrade the battery in extreme circumstances? Yes, it can, but it's less likely. Just like can EVs catch fire? Yes, but less than every other type. However, when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
So same thing with degradation of your battery. If you're at 120 degrees for 3 weeks, you got a much higher likelihood that battery is going to have some damage to it. Or but just about like having your EV in Florida, well, if it gets flooded in salt water, you're probably going to have a problem there. Now, what's the likelihood of that happening? Not as much. But certainly if you're buying out of one of those Southwest states, I would make doubly sure to do a EV battery check if you're buying used. But I recommend that no matter what, like no matter where you are. It's like one of my main things is take it to the OEM and get the battery, because that's your PPI on an EV. Get that battery health.
I just remember when we lived in the Phoenix area. I mean, you go 90, 120 days in a row of 100 plus degree temperatures.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We went when I was there one year. I mean, it hit like 140 days in a row, where the high temperature was 100 degrees or hotter. Oh, so that and the really good news is that it really cools down so much at night to 92, 93. So literally,
it's refreshing.
The range is somewhere between 90 and 110 degrees for 3 months in a row, sometimes 4 months in a row. I mean,
but it's dry heat.
Oh my God! Phil, I heard that all the time, and I said, "Dry,
I know. I just
wet,
had to say
I don't
it.
care." At 120 degrees, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I just had to say it.
People used to ask me, "Well, what's it like? Isn't it a dry heat?" I said, "It is." I said, "Do you have a hair dryer at home?" "Well, yeah." "Blow dryer?" "Yeah." "Well, plug it in, point it at your face, and turn it on high. You'll know what it's like to live in Phoenix." It's a dry heat, and it's friggin' uncomfortable.
I'll put it this way, Phil. I have some issues with the state in which I live currently.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at alternatives. I fled from Tucson back to California. I could not go fast enough back to California after living there. That was just as fast as I could go. There was nothing about that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Although I would take living out there, if I had a choice like between, let's say, Florida versus living out there in the summer, I would take that summer heat versus the saturated, humid heat that's in Florida during the summer. You got temperatures that average in the mid 90s when I lived in Tampa, and with the humidity, it makes it feel well above 100, and it just is stifling to. I mean, you got to take like 5 showers every day because it's just yuck. It is just yucky, and it's.
But Phil, you don't like the ocean. See, some of us would just go live in the ocean all day long.
I never said it.
I would just be in there floating, and then I wouldn't care.
Right.
I love
as long
the
as you have
ocean.
air conditioner and a pool, you're fine. Or near water, you're fine.
I get it. But I look. It's just my opinion. I just like if I had the option after living in Florida for so long. If I had the option for summer heat, I would take the dry over the humid.
Phil, where do you live now?
I'm in Michigan.
Okay.
And it's
so I was down in Florida for about 15, 20 years. I went to college down there, lived in Tampa for a long time, and because of family, came back up to Michigan. But I'll tell you, the first time that I moved down there during the summer, wow, that hurt. It really hurt. That humidity. It's like, oof.
Yeah. So in fairness, Phil,
more
I've
dramatic
never
than I
lived
probably
in
need to be, but it's just for
yeah.
FSU, Stuart.
FSU, that stands for what?
Florida State University.
I've heard of that.
That's where I graduated from.
Yeah.
Is that the Gator one?
No, thank you, Justice. No.
I was a legitimate question. I don't know which one is the Gators. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that's where Jameis Winston well, I don't know if he graduated, but that's where he played professionally before he got to the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's I tend to agree. I'm not real fond of humidity. And so I didn't really necessarily mind the heat so much in Phoenix, but that one summer where it was like 143 straight days. And and I looked at my wife and kids and I said, we've got to move somewhere cooler. How about Hawaii?
That's very humid as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It must be that water thing.
Around, yeah, it's probably being
land, and all that.
The special thing about Phoenix, though, I will say, is when it does rain. You know how in Boston or in Michigan, where you get those rainy weeks and it rains every day and it's gloomy, and you don't have that in Arizona typically. Yeah. That people actually celebrate when it rains because it doesn't happen that often. It's really kind of exciting. You can smell it in the air. It's like, oh my God, can you smell that? It's wonderful. You know,
I have that problem here too, Ray. You know that. There's many times where I'm like, 200 days of sunshine. I sure could use some rain.
Yeah.
I should. Wendy, didn't your son, or does he still live in Arizona?
So my son went out to school in Arizona, lived out there for about 10 years. He's been home for about 6 months, but he's going back in the summer.
In the summer. Like one. So winter in Boston and summer in Arizona. I think he has his wires
reversed.
Yeah, he kind of does. But I'll tell you, he wasn't sure if he was going to stay here longer. Born here, raised here, my son. And has decided there's no possibility that he would ever put himself through another Boston winter, even though we haven't even had any major snow yet. And he wants to move back to Arizona. Now, he loves the heat. He embraces the heat. He doesn't mind it. I mean, he'll say, well, it's hot out, but, he'll go somewhere cool. But so his plan is to go back to Arizona by the end of this summer. And so.
Wow.
Will you be taking your Maki on a road trip to go visit him
in Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's a plane.
Okay.
That is definitely not a road trip. We can rent one of those when we get there, but no.
How does he like your EV? I'm curious.
Absolutely loves it. Now, he didn't have any knowledge, when I came home from visiting you, and I was all excited and just saying, someday I might buy this, and I wasn't sure. I mean, originally it was like, as everybody is, you think of the first EV, you think of Tesla, right? Like, maybe I'll get a Tesla. We'll see. I'm not sure. There was ones I liked, and actually at one point I really liked the Kia.
The EV6, yep.
Yeah, I did like that when we drove that. But so we actually found an all used EV dealership in New Hampshire. Gotta love it. So we decided to take a road trip down there and test drive. I test drove a Volvo EV. Now I'm not going to know the model. Sorry, guys. But it was a Volvo, which I didn't even know Volvo had an EV yet. I drove the Kia, I drove the Hyundai, the Tesla, the Ford Mach-E. Try and think about another one. So I got to test drive about 5 or 6 of them. And at the end of it, and so I obviously brought him with me, and through like kind of me talking about it, and then he started doing a lot of research because he's very much like Justice. He needs to get all the information. And so when we did that test drive, I decided the Mach-E is really what I wanted. I just loved it. It feels very, very comfortable on the inside. And then before I bought it, he came home, he researched it and literally got all the ins and outs. He knows my car better than I do. Let's be honest. I drive it. I know how to charge it, drive it, and hope for the best, He's still figuring out all the electronic things and where what is. And then he teaches me because I just find it easier that way to have it done that way. But he loves it. Loves my car, loves the idea of it. And I'd say 6 months ago, he never even thought of an EV. And he even said he would consider buying one now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was curious because I knew he didn't know anything before.
No, really thought of it. Like I said, when you're telling people, they're looking at you like, okay, you're going to regret this decision in a couple years. And I turned around and said, in 10 years, when you're buying your first one, just remember me, because I was the first one you knew that had one. So,
but I know you were also smart. You went to the used, because EV depreciation, we all know, is really high. So you go buy used. I say this all the time: lease new, buy used.
Yeah,
let that depreciation hit. So you're just not taking that. I mean, do you get the $7,500 tax credit? No, it's already taken off from the depreciated value of the vehicle, so you don't need it.
And I wanted to put myself pretty close to where I was with my other vehicle. There was a lot of points like that. I mean, the Ford Mach-E, I think brand new is about going close to 60 grand or 55, somewhere in there, with all the, if you get the one with the panoramic view, which I did get because I loved it. But thank God I found a used one, which was way more affordable. And it's only 2 years old. It's not, 4 years old. I guess we're in 24, but do we really count 24? We're just kind of in it. But yeah, so I'd say that I think I've definitely have now a few people are a little more interested in EVs like I was with you. It takes the first one and them to get in it, experience, and then talk about like I said, saving on gas and saving on insurance. And really it's a very comfortable, wonderful drive. I really love driving my car. And I think more people are starting to be a little bit more interested in what I have, but I think I definitely sold my son.
Yeah. For me, I just find just driving people around. Like Wendy, we went and tested because you were interested the first time you were out after driving in my car. But did I ever push you? Did I ever say, hey, you need to get an EV? It was just
no.
You just drive around with someone in one, and it comes over. Like the more experience you have, I think the more interested in EVs you become.
Yeah, and I'd heard of them, mainly Tesla, right? Because that's the one you hear about. But when I came out and then you had one, and then it just sparked a lot of conversations. I had a lot of questions, right? Which I assume that people who drive with you for the first time ask you, how do you like it? How is it?
Mm-hmm.
And, and then when we came out the second time, again, you didn't sell me on Tesla. You said, let's test drive all kinds of EVs and see what's out there. And we went to we saw a Cadillac one. I was a little disappointed in that one. A lot of
so was Phil.
That was plastic, a lot of plastic knobs on a Cadillac. I was a little surprised. I mean, it was a pretty car, but yeah. So I think it was just having you have one and me being able to ask a lot of questions just sparked my interest.
Yeah, that's what I find. I've got, another friend who bought one. I got a friend now who I actually got him into his Toyota lease when I was working for Toyota. His lease is up now. And after driving around with me, he is looking, but he, unlike you, Wendy, he liked the EV6 and sticking with it. So he wants the EV6.
I wanted him trunk.
Maybe look, that's
Just joking.
it sounds stupid to a lot of people who don't drive EVs, but I really do look at that because I use my front for storage of things that I only need once in a while.
Yeah.
Like that I just really don't need, and I don't want to take up space in my trunk or in my car for it. So I put, my toolbox and stuff in there, and it really ends up being a big deal for me. I look at some of these and I open it up and I'm like, you just have all your battery technology up here. Why? Like, why would you do that? That's silly to me. But yeah, most people I talk to, I don't push Tesla because most of them don't know about Tesla. They know about Elon Musk, and one way or the other, they have an opinion about my car based on their opinion of the CEO of the company. And let's go, look, I don't care one way or the other. You can hate him. You can love him. You can think he's a god. You can think he's the devil. That just doesn't factor into my car for me.
Yeah.
You know what's factoring into me?
Lunch.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's getting to be that time. It's getting close to 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only 10:30 here. But, I just want to say.
Well, you can worry about lunch in a couple hours.
One last thing before we go, Ray. I did want to point out, Wendy, tell Ray where you work.
Mass General Hospital.
I don't have favorite hospitals, but if I had a favorite hospital, that would be my favorite hospital. And I believe back in December, my son and I raised over $10,000 for Mass General for cancer research. That's where, unfortunately, my wife passed away at that hospital. Well, it's not your fault. If you would have been there, you would have done as magnificent a job as the nurse. I'm just shocked at the nurses that work at that hospital, especially in the cancer wing. That's got to be a tough way to go, because you're just so many of your patients aren't going to get out of there. But yeah, that's I'm pretty sure there's not too many hospitals that are better than that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I do love it myself. I've never met more brilliant, caring, knowledgeable people in all my career. I've worked many places, and this is one I'm very proud to be at. I've been here for a while, and I do love Mass General as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an impressive hospital. It really is, and we were just as a family, so touched by the level of care and compassion of those that work there. It's a pretty special place.
It is. And they have amazing nurses that work there.
They do, and I know one now. Yeah.
Yes. So right before we sign off, I just wanted to, I'm sure you just got this alert too, Ray. Rivian just lowered the price of their base models by $3,100.
Wow, I did not know that. It's still not enough to make me want to get one.
No, I like the Rivian. They're just too expensive. Ditto the Kia EV9. Love it. Not worth the money.
You know what I still haven't seen down here at the seashore yet? And maybe I'll see one this summer, because that's when the quality of vehicles goes up dramatically during the summer months when all the rich people come back. I haven't seen a Cybertruck yet.
Yeah, I've only seen them in the museum. I haven't seen one out in the wild yet either, Ray.
Okay, well, if you haven't seen one in your area, then I'll probably never see one in mine.
Well, they're not built here, so unlike the other Teslas that are all built up here in Northern California, not all, but a lot of them are built here. The Cybertruck's all in Austin.
Yeah, but still, California's a pretty big market for it.
Yes. I guess that Igor has already sold one.
Well,
I don't want to ask how much he sold it for.
No, I don't want to know either. I don't want to know either.
Just don't tell us, Igor. It's not going to sound too good.
He sold it for a lot more. I guarantee you one thing about Igor. He sold it for a lot more than he paid for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we guarantee that. All right. Well, Ray, you go eat lunch.
There you go. He just did it. See?
Oh, Lord. I knew it.
Yep.
I'm going to go eat lunch.
Yeah,
damn
you
it.
go eat. I'm sure Phil has meetings. I know I got meetings coming up. Wendy,
it
I
was
don't know
a
what you're doing.
pleasure
but-
meeting you.
You too, Wendy.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for
having
doing
me.
this.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back next week about something. I don't know what. We'll figure it out.
Cool.
Maybe we'll talk about Elon Musk.
No.
No, let's not, please.
No, we're not going to. We're not going to do that. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.